You think everybody's watching you. You think they noticed the weird thing you said. You think they're analyzing your silence or your laugh or that moment you stumbled over your words. Then you replay it like it's your job. Why can't you stop? You're overthinking because your brain is running an old program from a time when belonging meant survival. You're not the problem. The wiring is the problem. So today you're going to learn why your brain assumes people are thinking about you when they really aren't, what the research says about this spotlight you feel trapped under, and the 3 tools you can use to shut down the spiral so you can walk into any room steady and grounded. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm so happy you're here. You know who I am. And you're going to be listening to this, I'm pretty sure, in January of 2026. So, I do record these earlier. So welcome to 2026. And I was trying to put this at the top of the new year, because I think it's a time when we're evaluating ourselves a lot and thinking a lot about what we want and what we don't want and all the good things. So overthinking, that topic seemed like a good topic for now. And, if you've ever replayed a conversation kind of long after it ended, or analyzed what someone might have meant when they, paused too long or looked away when you were talking to them, obviously you're in good company, because overthinking what people think of you, I would say, is one of the most common emotional habits people tend to have. You do it with friends, partners, coworkers, family, strangers at the grocery store. It doesn't seem to matter for a lot of people. And what's happening is you're interpreting neutral moments as judgment. So you fill in the blanks with worst case scenarios. And I think most people are bracing for impact when nothing is coming. And you know that's true from your history. Most of the time, nothing happens. And I think the whole time you're telling yourself you should know better, you shouldn't care so much, you shouldn't spiral, you shouldn't worry, but thinking something and doing something are two different things. And I will tell you that overthinking has nothing to do with should. Overthinking is your nervous system trying to keep you safe. So instead of fighting it or shaming it, I'd like you to understand it today. That's one of my goals today. And then you'll have the leverage, the motivation, the value to change it. So that's what we're going to do. So why do you assume people are thinking about you? Okay. Your brain is constantly evaluating your social environment, even when you're not aware of it. And the research shows that your brain automatically scans for social cues. Get this, the same way it scans for physical danger. This isn't you being dramatic or hypersensitive. This is how the human brain, your brain, was built. Now, so what we call social cognitive neuroscience, that very special branch of neuroscience, has shown that when your mind is at rest, it shifts into what those researchers call the default mode network, which automatically processes social information, imagines social scenarios, evaluates relationships, and it really keeps track of how you fit into the social world. So you literally default to thinking about people, okay? That is your default mode, everybody's. On top of that, your brain treats social pain and social threat as if they're physical danger, like I said in the introduction. What is her name? Naomi Eisenberger. She's done a lot of work in this area. And her research shows that the same neural pathways that respond to physical pain light up when you feel rejected or excluded. Is that crazy? Or our bodies are so nuts. So if someone pauses before answering you or gives you some sort of expression that you can't decode, even if it's like some neutral expression you can't decode, your brain often interprets that ambiguity as a threat. I know. So, okay. So there's that. And again, all the research I'm going to talk about, which always there's a lot, you can get to by looking under the video if you're watching me on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you are. And if you're otherwise, you can go to the website, abbymetcalf.com. And I know I have to say this every time because I always have new listeners. And I always write a corresponding blog for every episode. So you can take notes from, you can just copy and paste from the blog if you want. But you can also get to all the research. I have a great free download today, really good downloads for today's episode to help you take this further, kind of meant to be like therapy for you afterwards, but we'll get to that later. But all that can be found under the video on the website. All right, wherever you find this episode. So there's that. And then there's your early wiring. And this, of course, believe it has to do with attachment, right? And attachment researchers, and I did episodes on attachment already. And actually, I'm going to do a few more on attachment because people are so into it. On secure attachment, insecure attachment. They're coming up in a few, maybe even next week or in a few weeks. But attachment researchers like, Mary Ainsworth is probably the most famous, found that from infancy, from being a baby, you're trained to scan caregivers for cues of closeness, safety, and responsiveness. And those early the templates, that early wiring, they don't disappear. They grow up with you. So if you learned early that people can be inconsistent, that they can be checked out or unpredictable, your brain keeps scanning for those patterns in every room you walk into. And this is why you do walk into a room and immediately sense where a threat might be, right? You notice the person who is harder to read. You tune into the one expression that looks a little off. You ignore all the cues, of course, that say you belong. God forbid we looked at those and believe those, right? You look at that other stuff. So that's also at play. And lastly, we all have something we call it the spotlight effect. Okay. We should talk about it, the spotlight effect. And there's a couple researchers who are pretty big in the spotlight effect, Thomas Gilovich and Kenneth Savitsky. Maybe he should rename himself. In their research, they found that you dramatically overestimate how much people notice you. Okay. Lots of researchers have found this. Theirs is probably the most seminal when it comes to this, the most important. And again, I'll link to it. You dramatically overestimate how much people notice you. They don't see you. I know. It hurts, right? Does it hurt? Does it not hurt? I don't know. They had a really classic study where they had students wearing an embarrassing T-shirt, and they thought like half the room would notice, but only a quarter actually did. Your brain exaggerates your visibility because it thinks your safety depends on it. So it's always exaggerating that. But when you put all this together, it makes perfect sense that you overthink, or overthinking what people think of you. Your brain is scanning for danger, your history is providing the patterns, and your thoughts fill in the blanks. So you're not imagining it. It's like you're feeling the echo of old wiring and old rules that were all built to keep you connected. They weren't built to keep you confident. They were built to keep you connected. So let's talk about the negativity bias, which also keeps you focused on the wrong data, okay? Again, your brain is designed to lock onto anything negative. I've talked about this so many times. And this is your negativity bias, and it is powerful. Research, there's a lot of it, shows that negative experiences and cues are processed more deeply and remembered more vividly than positive ones. It's so unfair, right? It's like so unfair. So if someone smiles at you, your brain registers it, but it like moves on really quickly. But if somebody frowns at you, you store that like a squirrel hoarding nuts for the winter. Okay. That really hits. And I always give people the example of like, if you walked into a doctor's office and the person or in any office, and the receptionist smiles at you, you smile back and you sit down, you're not going to think much of it. But if you had walked in and that person had frown just even a tiny bit at you, you'd be thinking of it all day. What was wrong with them? What was wrong with him or her? Why were they frowning? What was that? Did I do something? Did I say something? Oh, they must have been pissed at me. I don't know. Let me ask the doctor. Let me talk to people. We don't want to talk to everybody if they've been smiling. So that is always, you hold that so strongly. Then don't forget your reticular activating system, which I've talked about 100 times, your RAS, which filters the world based on whatever you fear most, basically. So if you fear judgment, your RAS is going to highlight everything that looks like judgment. If you fear disappointing someone, your RAS brings any micro expressions they have into very high definition. You don't see the whole picture. You see the threat shaped by your history. I'm going to say that again. You don't see the whole picture. You see the threat, and that is shaped by your history. Okay? That's all I'm going to say on that. Okay. I always have so much I could say. You know I do, right? You know I've got so much I could say on all this, but I try to keep it directed for you so we're not here for hours together, even though I'd be fine with that, but you'd be so bored. What I want to do next is talk about why early relationships prepared you to overthink. That's where I want to go now. So if your caregivers were, growing up, were inconsistent, if they were critical, distracted, emotionally unpredictable, if you grew up with any sort of mental health issues with your caregivers, anything like that, you learned to monitor everything to stay safe. You learned to anticipate moods. You learned to edit yourself. You learned that love could shift without warning. You learned that life could shift without warning. So now your nervous system is still running those scripts. Okay, so like somebody pauses before responding. I'm telling you, your body is saying, oh, here we go again. Here we go again. Someone looks away, maybe your chest tightens. Your partner seems distracted and you assume it must be you. It's not irrational. It's familiar. It's not irrational. It's familiar, but familiar does not mean it's true. And that's what you really have to believe. You have to start understanding. So understanding the science is the first step. That is our first step. The next step is changing the pattern. And the research is clear that you can interrupt these reactions and build new neural pathways in the brain, right? You can, but you got to know the right tools. And that's what we're going to talk about today, right? So, and again, I always give you sort of the brain chemistry and the brain patterns because I want you to really, if you're listening to me, it's because you're intelligent. You want to understand things. You don't just want the 20-second overview of just tell me what to do. And by the way, we know again from the research that those don't really work. Most people don't do what they know to do because they haven't understood the value of it yet, which is again why I give context and background in your brain and all the things so that you can really understand that when I'm giving you tools, they're going to be right from the research. They're going to be things I've used with my own clients for years that, that work, and things I apply in my own life that work. So I'm going to give you 3 tools. I think I'm going to give you 3. I might give you more, but I think it's going to be 3. Tool number 1 is that you want to interrupt the spiral with cognitive labeling. Well, we're going to, that negative spiral, you want to interrupt it with cognitive labeling. And I want to give you this tool first because overthinking is really fast and you need something that slows the spin long enough for you to catch your breath. And cognitive labeling works because it's really shifting activity from your amygdala, from the fear part of your brain, to the prefrontal cortex, the thinking, rational, logical part of your brain. The moment you name your experience, your brain calms down. And that's what cognitive labeling or affect labeling is. You're naming it. You're naming a feeling. You're naming your experience. And so here's how you use it. You're going to notice the thought and say, I'm having the thought that they're judging me. I'm having the thought that they're criticizing me, that they're judging is usually what it is. I'm having the thought that they're judging me. Do you see that? Not they're judging me, not that. I'm having the thought. I'm telling myself the story, you could also say, that this person is judging me. And so not they're judging me, not stop thinking about this, just I'm having the thought that. or the story I'm telling myself right now is. Those are the only two. That's what I want you to do. And this is creating distance between you and the fear. Okay. And we, again, know from the research that this works really well. So maybe you text someone and they don't respond. Okay. An old pattern might be, oh, I bothered them. They're annoyed with me. I said too much. They hate me, whatever. If you're going to do some cognitive labeling here, you would say, I'm having the thought that their silence means something about me. How's that? I'm telling myself the story that they don't like me right now. You see where this is? You're in a meeting and your idea gets lukewarm reaction, okay? The old pattern is something like, oh, everybody thinks I'm clueless. People think I'm so stupid. I can't believe I said something. I don't know why I think I had something to say. If we're doing some cognitive labeling here, you'd say, I'm having the fear that I sounded stupid. See that? That's the difference. I want to give you a few more examples. Your partner is quieter than usual. I just had this with a client. Your old pattern, oh, what did I do now? I must have done something wrong. Cognitive labeling, again, I'm noticing I'm telling myself the story that their quietness is about me. So once you name it, the intensity drops, and then you can move to the next step. Okay? So just that every time. And it's so quick and and if you just do it every time, it becomes habit. Tool number 2 is to give your brain a job so it stops inventing threats. Overthinking really thrives in ambiguity, meaning it thrives when there's no, we're not here and we're not there. We're not directed. We're sort of in the middle of something. When your brain doesn't know what to do, it fills in the blanks with threat-based stories. You stop that by assigning your brain a job before you walk into a situation. In other words, you set a mental intention. You give your brain a target. So you create structure instead of letting your anxiety create craziness. That's what you're doing. So some examples here. Before you go into a social gathering, right? My job is to be curious, not perfect. How do you like that? My job is to be curious, not perfect. Before you talk to your partner about something, maybe that's vulnerable, my job is to stay connected to myself and not read their mind. I like that. Before a meeting, my job is to contribute one clear thought, and my job is not to impress everybody. My job is to contribute one clear thought, not impress everyone. Before, I'm trying to think of something else. Before calling a friend you're afraid you upset. Let's say you have a friend you think you upset them. My job is to listen and be honest, not predict the outcome. Okay? So you're not controlling the situation. You're controlling the frame. I'm going to say that again. You are not controlling the situation. You're controlling the frame. And again, research shows that when you set a clear intention like that, you activate your executive control networks in your brain. Again, all that prefrontal cortex action. And that's going to help you regulate your emotions. It's going to help you shift out of fear-based processing. It's going to help you shift from, fight, flight, or freeze or people pleasing into healthy action. So you move from reacting to the moment to really directing it, which is what we're looking to do, right? Okay. Tool number 3. First, I need a sip of water. Hold on one second. Tool number 3. How do I want to say this? You're going to shift from performing to grounded communication. Okay? I want to say it that way. You're going to shift from performance to grounded communication. Because so overthinking turns you into a performer. You watch yourself from the outside, and you scan other people for their reactions. You edit your words mid-sentence because you're looking at how people are reacting to you. You analyze your tone. You're really trying to manage how someone is perceiving you. And performing disconnects you. Okay? That's what's happening. Grounded communication connects you. When you change what your body's doing, your nervous system reads those shifts as cues of either safety or danger, right? So you want to show it cues for safety. And the research shows that slow breathing, relaxed posture, drop those shoulders, unclench that jaw, and steady eye contact signal safety through the vagus nerve. I've talked about the vagus nerve quite a bit, right? That's your body's way to turn on that parasympathetic nervous system. And it really influences how you process things emotionally. So this is why grounding through your body really can change your state of mind in real time. Okay. So how do you use it? You slow your breathing by a count or two. Drop your shoulders. Feel your feet on the floor. Notice your speech pattern, like speak at a normal pace instead of rushing. Slow yourself down. Purposely take that breath before you talk. Choose one person to track instead of the whole room. That's something I do in meetings when, sometimes I'm in a board meeting with, I'm going there to present maybe on an executive I've been doing some work with. And I have to tell you, I'm getting a lot of scrutiny, a lot of people coming at me at once because maybe things aren't going as well as they would like and they want to try to blame me. So I really ground myself. I feel my feet on the floor. I will choose one person to focus on instead of the whole room. And it really helps me I watch my breathing. I drop my shoulders. I make sure I'm sitting very relaxed and breathing out of my stomach, not my chest. A lot of times I'll put one hand on my stomach so that I can feel that going up and down. Your chest should not be moving if you're belly breathing. Another biggie is to let silence exist without always trying to fill it. That's another really good one. I try to make sure I'm just not feeling, we get nervous, we start talking, right? We start people aren't having a reaction that we want, and we keep talking to, just shutting up is a really good place to be, but not dissociating, not pulling away completely. Let me think of some good examples here. Let's say you're meeting someone new, going on a first date, and your mind starts to script every sentence in advance, right? Instead, you want to, in those cases, I tell my clients, tune into your feet. Tune into your feet. Feel your feet on the ground. Look them in the eye. Maybe ask a more simple question. So, what's been the best part of your day so far? Something like that. Something simple. What were you most excited about? Or what were you thinking of? What were you the most excited about for our date tonight? Something like that. Just start there. Another example, let's say you're afraid your partner is annoyed with you and your panic is rising. So instead of analyzing their tone, and with their posture and their breathe, everything, breathe slowly, again, get your breath, make sure you're in charge of it, and say something like, can you tell me what's going on for you right now? I want to understand. Do you see that? Grounded communication shifts your nervous system from performance to presence. That is the thing to take away from this. Once you feel present, that negative spiral really loses its power, and that's what you're trying to do. So let me wrap up. You, and then I'll talk about the free giveaway for today. You think people are thinking about you far more than they actually are. Again, the research says that. The problem isn't that you care too much. The problem is that your brain was built for belonging. It was wired by your childhood and trained to find danger even when there isn't any. So it's really important that when you interrupt the spiral, give your brain a job and shift from performance to presence. You're stepping out of that imagined spotlight that you've made up, and you're stepping into real connection. Because again, most people aren't analyzing you. They're really not. They're thinking about their own insecurities, their own worries, their own problems, their own place in the world. And you really get to live more freely than your fear wants you to believe. And that's what I want you to have. So the free download for today is, I'm calling it the Overthinking Interrupt Formula. It's really giving you everything we talked about today, but in a condensed version. The exact phrases, grounding cues, thought reframes you can use to stop that spiral in real time. And you can download it below the video. You can download it on the website where you find this blog post. page for this episode of the podcast. And I'm always very transparent. If you download anything from me, you are going to be put on my love letter list, which is twice a month. You're going to get a love letter from me where I help you. It's just a little note to help you think differently, twice a month. That's it. You're not going to get bombarded with things. I'm not going to try to sell you anything. I do not try to sell anything in the love letter, not to worry. It is really just meant to help, which I know you find hard to believe. There's also a therapy to go bundle that is goes with this episode. So for $10, you can download I'm going to tell you what's in the bundle so you know what you're getting. So that you can go, if this is a problem for you, if you are so worried about whether people are thinking all the time, this is a great way to do some like therapy with yourself. If you have a therapist, it's a great thing to work on with your therapist. But if you don't, it's a way for you to do it's a therapy to go. That's why I call them that. So in the bundle, for this particular episode, you're going to get a social safety inventory. It's really like a self-assessment, kind of like a little quiz to understand why certain situations trigger your overthinking. And then I have another thing you're going to get is the Overthinking to Truth Reframe Map, which is really a step-by-step guide to help you shift from fear-based thoughts into those grounded communication, those grounded interpretations. There's also a social cue decoder. There's also a neutral face practice guide. It really talks about why ambiguity feels threatening and really how to build tolerance for that uncertainty and ambiguity. There's also the Show Up as Your Future Self script. It's really like it's a guide to help you shift identity in that moment you start to spiral. That's what it's meant for. So all of that you can download is for just $10. And you could also join my One Love Collective on Substack, which is $8 a month for the whole month, and you get the Therapy to Go bundle for every single episode that I put out that month. So, and you get live Q&As with me, and you get the support of the community, and you get ad-free podcasts, you get all kinds of stuff, early drops. There's quite a bit that's included in that. So you can do any of that, none of that, whatever floats your boat. I am here whether you don't want to spend any money or don't want to take this any further, and I am here if you just want everything for free and want to hang out. That is totally fine. You can do that with me. All right. I hope this helped. I hope this really helps you start the year off well, and not worrying so much about what other people are thinking, because they're just not thinking about you that much. All right. But I am. I'm sending lots of love and lots of patience this week, lots of mindfulness. I hope all that comes your way. All right. Have a wonderful week, and I'll talk to you real soon.